welcome back to a Meet Our Member episode for the IFBTA. And with conversation with me, and by the way, not the first time with a conversation with me, is Kelly Esten, the Chief Marketing Officer of Toast. So, Kelly, welcome to the IFBTA and Meet Our Member series.
Rob, thank you so much for having me.
So, this is interesting because you're really not just any member, you as a person or you as Toast, as any member. But in reality, Toast became the first leadership member of the IFBTA, which is a very special designation. It's above global, and you guys are clearly global, but you are very much the market leader. And that makes this Meet Our Member even more special because I'm not sure that everybody knew, the investment that Toast has made into the IFBTA.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. And we're so thrilled to be participating with the IFBTA at that level this year. And it's really because we see the work that the IFBTA is doing is very much in line with our mission to make sure restaurants have all the access to information and connections to really make them successful in using technology, understanding where the technology landscape is headed. And, in this day and age, in 2025, technology has really become core to running a great restaurant. And so we're excited to be working with you all on that this year.
Well, I think that the stars sort of aligned for Toast because, Toast I've known for maybe almost all of its life, maybe all except maybe the first couple of years. I think it's 13 or 14 years now. And if you think about it, where you started and where you are today, I know everybody probably thinks that Toast is synonymous with restaurants, but in reality, that ecosystem is a lot bigger than just restaurants.
That's right. And what we found, particularly over the last 5 years or so, is that our restaurant customers, which is absolutely our core of what we've built over the last 12, 13, 14 years, have really pulled us to expand the way we think of what is a restaurant. And the way I describe it these days is really everywhere food is served and sold. And so, our restaurant customers first were the ones who asked us, can we go into hotels? As many of our largest brands like Jose Andres Group and Union Square Hospitality, were opening restaurants within hotels. And then increasingly other venues where our restaurant customers were serving their food. And then really since the COVID era, as they've been selling more grocery and retail items and 12 packs of beer and bottles of wine. That really has pulled us into other parts of the market, driven by our customers, and where they're growing and expanding is where we're finding ourselves following them and doing the same.
So I think you just described the IFBTA. So that's very interesting. No, but seriously, if you think about this, we use the term food service because obviously you're also doing stadiums and arenas and other types of things like that, which are in the food service ecosystem. But what we found is that the reason why we end up expanding is the same reason that you do, is that food is served everywhere. And there's a lot of mix between the types of customers, as you've already pointed out. You had restaurant customers and food service customers who took you into hotels, and they would take you into arenas. And so you need to be able to grow with them, and they need to be able to grow with Toast.
That's right. That's right. And we want to be, we think of ourselves as the restaurant point of sales platform that really allows growing restaurants to thrive and expand. And we want to be there to grow with them at all phases of their growth.
So while you had a core that started within the restaurant business and you've expanded these others, the word platform is a very interesting, word, because you really were able to build on that. And, I spent some time with your team at the National Retail Federation show this year where they were introducing Toast Retail officially. Mm-hmm. And, that word platform came up too. And I think that Toast seemed to recognize that each market space was unique, that it wasn't one size fits all, but there was a bedrock to build on. Could you maybe explain that a little bit more, what that strategy is?
Yeah, absolutely. If we think about how we describe Toast, it's a cloud-based, all-in-one digital technology platform built for the broader restaurant community. And to your point, now expanding into, as you describe it, the broader food service community. And, if you think about that core foundation of what has to happen in a restaurant, but also has to happen in a food and beverage outlet, in a hotel or a stadium, or at really a retail, maybe even a retail store that has a deli counter, or a high-end market that's selling packaged food that you can, grab and go lunch, but also those grocery items that you need to bring home to make dinner that night. At the core of all of those experiences is really what happens in the physical space that allows someone to pick an item, make an order, pick up an item from a grocery store, take payment, manage a kitchen workflow or an inventory behind the scenes, and increasingly reach outside those four walls through things like online ordering and digital platforms that allow them to know their guests, reach them, understand them, and bring them back. And we really think about what are all those pieces of technology that a restaurant needs to be successful and to understand their guests, to serve them well when they're in their four walls, but also to bring them back.
Well, you're bringing up, first of all, a number of points, that are very important nuances to understanding Toast and its capability and its reach, quite frankly, out there. So you have different vertical industry segments, right? So hotel and food service and stadium and restaurant and retail, all these different things. You have also a lot of different applications that have to fit together. And I know for a long time there's been a debate in this industry about all-in-one versus best of breed. And I sort of tend to think of Toast as the best of both, that you actually have both.
That's right. That's right. When I think about the way I talk to, especially growing brands about the Toast ecosystem, it's really in two pieces. One is increasingly, we do have that all-in-one offering that if you want to get all of your technology needs met, whether it's point of sale, payroll, online ordering, digital marketing, we've got the products that allow you to do that. And there's increasingly a real benefit to the data flowing across, to one platform to call support on, the ability to really manage it all with one vendor. We have that ability, but we also have an open ecosystem with over 250 other technologies integrated into Toast, and we add more literally every month, that allow restaurants to choose places where they want to bring in something unique, or increase a capability where they're really leaning in, or even bring in something custom. And so the ability to both start with an all-in-one platform and then grow and add to your tech stack over time as your needs evolve, or as you grow, or your needs in a particular area become more sophisticated, we have that opportunity to do that across our entire ecosystem. And in fact, we have many what people would call competitive product offerings on the Toast platform, because we want restaurants to have the solution stack that best fits their needs.
So there's something else that comes to mind in that one as well. And when I think back to the early conversations, even with you, when you first, and I got to meet, there was always this debate in the industry. Another thing that I think we need to point out is that Toast was for the small and independent operator. And in the early days, and I don't know if you'll remember this, but it always makes me smile. I think about this, that enterprise was defined at Toast as 15 units.
Yes.
And I used to think to myself, oh my gosh, 15 units, right? And today, I know that definition is different, and I know you have customers from the independent to the SMB to the enterprise at mid-tier all the way up to a large enterprise. And maybe you can talk about how Toast has been able to make that change and meet those markets.
Yeah, absolutely. Aman, our founder and CEO, always reminds me that Toast has been mid-market for a long time. And some of our early customers were multi-unit brands that were growing on Toast, but we were not true enterprise in the beginning. And in fact, what we're known for and where we've seen a lot of growth is in serving those independent restaurants or SMB restaurants that have really made up our core. But what we started to feel 4 or 5 years ago in particular was that we were really being pulled up market, and larger brand leaders were going into restaurants, many of them their favorite independents in their neighborhoods where they went out in city centers, and interacting with Toast in the wild with a Toast Go handheld, or seeing the KDS being used behind a coffee bar or in a full service restaurant and saying, why can't I have that for my brand? And what I always say is that core experience of what was happening in the restaurant and our increasing sophistication and being able to serve lots of service models in the restaurant is what allowed us to move up market. And we made the decision to really invest in our above store platform a handful of years ago that allows us to serve a large enterprise brand with 1,000 or more units who can really manage menus at scale, manage permissions at scale, make sure we have really enterprise grade security. Those things allow us to serve those larger brands. And the other piece we've been investing in over the past 4 or 5 years while we've done that is what I call advanced service models. So the ability for a restaurant brand who really has a strong operating and way of working in store to bring that way of working to Toast without needing to customize or to build something on top. And so as a result, to your point, we have brands as large as Applebee's, which is part of Dine Brands, and big hotel chains like Marriott on the platform, as well as those independent restaurants. And they're all using the same software and hardware and platform.
And by the way, we both know that independent ones and SMBs grow to be larger ones very quickly, or they get acquired by some of the larger ones.
Sure do.
And therefore, they have to be able to work within that system. So that combination of best of breed as well as all in one makes a lot of sense because it's not an all or nothing situation.
That's a great point, Rob. And some of our early largest customers were ones that are actually multiple brands within a corporate umbrella that have grown and added Toast restaurants and independent groups over time and really helped us learn how we help them scale up, especially on that corporate tools for the corporate teams back at headquarters who are managing those locations at scale.
All right. So there are a lot of conversations here. So I just want to make sure that we focus on one other, because I was thinking when you were talking about how you started out, and the specialty, and I think about industry segments. And for instance, in POS, a lot of people would say like pizza is a really tough segment to do.
Correct.
Right. But I would tell you the independent is a really tough segment to do.
Yeah.
Because you really have to do it. So the ability to work with that and then grow is also, as I understand it, how you started in retail, that you're focusing on that SMB and the independent and working your way up into the larger enterprise people in the convenience store industry and some of the other areas.
That's right. If you think about what allowed us to be successful in serving SMB or independent, that was quite different than how the industry had served them in the past. It was our ability to invest in in-person sales and support. And so because we made a couple key decisions early on in the Toast lifecycle, to use Android hardware, which was inexpensive and customizable, to pair point of sale and payments, and early on things like online ordering, that allowed us to have the revenue to support putting our sales and service people in market, to walk into restaurants, to install them physically, to be there to support them throughout their life cycle. That service and support in person has been a big part of our success with independent restaurants and continues to be core as we scale. And when I think of what has made us successful in enterprise, yes, we made a lot of investment in the product over the past half a dozen years. But we've also made a lot of investment in the service model and recognizing that different size restaurants need different ways of service and support and making sure they're successful on Toast. And so setting up dedicated teams for, independence versus enterprise has been another key part of our strategy.
Well, I think that also that understanding of the SMB and the independent works very well in any franchise organization, because those are really independent business people. And especially like if you look at a hotel market or something, if they're management companies, they may be doing multiple brands. And so there's really that opportunity of understanding how the smaller business person needs to operate, even if they're part of something larger, really does help. And that local support and the ability to be able to touch, feel, and get to know the customer directly does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I use that talking point a lot with our corporate brands, is like, we're going to help make sure you have the tools at corporate be successful, but we also understand the financial pressure a franchisee might be under, how hard it is to invest in new technology from a dollars and a time perspective because of our experience with independence. And it really allows us to help both sides of the table know what's important to them, what it takes to make them successful, and have that ability to both scale up, but also feel equally invested in working one-to-one with each restaurant location, because that's how we're used to operating.
So one of the interesting things, and this would be another touch point I don't think that people actually know about Toast, and I may have experienced or seen it somewhere else, but it's a lot easier today being a cloud-based program and the way food is prepared and served today to open up internationally.
Yes.
And people will go, they'll have 3 units in total, and they'll open up in Dubai
Yep.
or they'll open up in the UK because people are able to do that today and the systems are able to go with them. And as you just said earlier, you said that Toast has grown with its customers and its customers have taken you into new markets, but they're also taking it in new geographies. So what's that international piece about?
Correct, absolutely. So today we're operating in the UK, Ireland, and Canada. And it's like you knew this, maybe you did, but our first location in each of those markets was an enterprise brand who was willing, who had Toast Live in our core locations, was willing to be first and help grow with us. And we've put teams in market in all three of those countries, and we have more planned. But your point is right on, which is there's both really strong independent markets. One of our executive team members was just in London last week and said, there's a restaurant in every block, just like New York City. And we all know that to be true as we've traveled to some of these major cities. There's plenty of wonderful independent restaurants, but also many of our mid-market and enterprise customers are asking us, where else can we have Toast? And so they're
I've heard the rumors.
they're core to our strategy too.
But you know what is interesting about that is a lot of people don't get to travel internationally, and a lot of times companies just assume because you do business in the US a certain way, you have to do business somewhere else that way.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of your strengths, that as you approach the markets, in Ireland and the UK and Canada, that even Canada, which is part of North America, but they do business differently.
Yeah.
That you recognize that you actually have to do business locally.
Absolutely.
Even if it's an international company. And that seems to be one of the strengths that you have to understand that.
Yeah. One of the other really cool things about our international strategy is that Dublin, Ireland, has become a really important R&D hub for us over the years.
Absolutely.
And for many other tech companies, it's known as a great place to hire technical talent. And so we've had a Dublin office for a long time. And I think the people who were most excited for us to open in Dublin were our engineering leaders in Dublin who wanted to be able to go out and talk to customers and touch and feel the hardware, just like their engineering peers in the US do. We spend a lot of time making sure our product and engineering teams spend time in restaurants and seeing the products in action. And so having those relationships locally has really helped us from an R&D perspective as well, to build the right products for all of our customers, but in particular for our international customers who do have a little bit of different needs in some areas.
I follow Toast on LinkedIn, and I see a lot of the announcements that come from various toasters, who work there and are celebrating anniversaries. And even those who have left that are still following and they're part of that family and community, there must be a great sense of pride for people who are working internationally, as you say, that we're helping to develop and support the product. And now it's in their home space,
yeah.
But also for those who have grown up within the brand and have grown with it and seen it and also seen the customers grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say the best part about working at Toast is our customers. And it's because for two reasons. One is, there's very few B2B SaaS companies you can go work at where all you have to do to go interact with the customer is to walk out your front door. And there's a coffee shop or a place to grab lunch or a place to grab dinner with your family where you can see your products in the wild. But also, this, Rob, like hospitality people are the best. And you develop real relationships over the years with your customers and in your communities. And that community piece is a huge part of our brand. And it's something that, not to talk marketing for a minute, but, we're really leaning into that community pillar of our brand because restaurants make up the fabric of all of our communities. And that local knowledge, that local service, that local connection is what makes restaurants special. And it's something that we want to do as part of Toast too.
So since we're bringing up the word community here,
mm-hmm.
And it really is a community because people, just work in this community, they spend their lives in it. Everybody started in it, even if they end up somewhere else.
Yep.
And you're doing a lot for the community. I bet a lot of people really actually don't know about. Not only, the different things that Toast supports, community wide types of things, but also you're providing a lot of things back to the industry to help them to be more successful, whether they're Toast customers or not. And I look at some of the benchmarking and insights that you do, some of the education programs. I mean, maybe you can share that and how people can actually find that, because I'm not so sure they know that that kind of information is actually available to them and very valuable in growing their businesses, whether they're currently a Toast customer or not.
Yeah, and everything we do under our what we call our community pillar is not just for Toast customers, but is for anyone in the restaurant industry, to your point. So, I would consider working with IFBTA in the community pillar as well, which is how can we invest in the associations and gathering places for restaurants that matter to them. And it's, not just Toast as a point of sale provider who's part of the IFBTA, but it's important for everyone in the community to have that. I would also say, our events we do across the US, we host both big and small events that are really intended to be educational sessions all across the US. Toast on Tour is one, but our local teams are empowered with a program called Paint Your Town Orange to go out and host events that matter to their own communities, driven by the demand from local restaurateurs. But
Can we all get orange sneakers?
Yes, orange sneakers can be delivered wherever they're needed, so that you can walk around your town in your orange sneakers. But I have orange flats because that's more my style. But, last but not least, and I know this is what you were alluding to a little bit before as well, is we do put out data. So we have almost 140,000 restaurants on Toast. And as a result, we have a lot of data that's really relevant today on things like menu prices, traffic, same-store sales, even opening and closing times, and tipping trends have been very popular as well. And what we find is that restaurants, especially independent restaurants, don't have access to that data otherwise on things like peer benchmarking for, how their burger maybe is priced relative to the competition, or, hey, it's kind of been a tough quarter for me. Are everyone else's sales up and I'm alone, or am I kind of in line with the industry? And that kind of data, I think, builds community, but also provides value and education back.
So if you have, but wait, if you have all that kind of data out there, and I hate really talking about AI because I think that it ought to just be embedded, but you actually have embedded AI into what you're doing as well to help somebody to make better decisions or better. We know it's about the marketing, and everybody's able to get out there today. So not only do you have the benchmarking, but you have other. Why don't you talk about AI, how that fits, but also the tools that you help people to run their business better?
Yeah, absolutely. So we think about AI in two buckets. One is, to your point, all the data that we have allows us to run a lot of, to have a lot of interesting insights. We can talk about that. And then the other one is, what people think of, I think, as AI today, which is like the ability to interact with an agent and to talk back and forth with an AI agent. And we are working on both. So we talked about at our last investor day, we named our agent sous chef. In a kind of clever nod to, someone who's there helping you in a restaurant. And that's someone you can talk to about what's going on in your business, ask questions. And it's increasingly, we're bringing that agent experience into support because, picking up the phone in a busy restaurant and having a conversation on the phone is often loud. The ability to chat back and forth has been really, really popular with our customers. So there's that agent experience. But increasingly, we're infusing all parts of the Toast platform with AI capabilities driven by our data set. So, for example, your AI assistant can write your marketing emails for you or your marketing texts. And we're broadening that platform ahead of NRA and announcing even more marketing-fueled, AI-fueled marketing tools for restaurants at NRA.
Can we set that up to do it automatically? And I'm actually being sort of serious about this, but automatically for us, where it is constantly monitoring certain things and changing the messaging by what it sees in the marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the way the AI marketing agent works today is it suggests and then automates campaigns for you. So, there's some simple classic campaigns that everyone in restaurants runs, like the birthday campaign. But we also can do, hey, Kelly was a regular and she hasn't been in 30 days. And so can I prompt her with an email or even, we'd love to get to the point where we're pairing certain menu items with certain people who we know would love those new menu items or a special. And so those abilities to really use the data and the AI to fuel a set of segmented marketing campaigns is something that I think traditionally you would have thought I need an enterprise brand and a full tech stack and a marketing team to do. And now, an independent restaurant has those tools available to them to really be able to set up a handful of really powerful campaigns and run them and never think about it again. It's set it and forget it in the background.
So now you got me thinking about like what happened. So 5 years is a long time out, right? I mean, really, we're talking about the speed of change and the things, and we know that the consumer and the guest really drive what we have to do, from payments to marketing to how they want to interact with us. But if we think about where operators, and I'm going to just say operators and customers are going to go in the next 3 to 5 years, what are the challenges or the opportunities or trends that you think, either personally from what you're seeing, or that Toast is going to be focused on addressing as we go forward?
Yeah, I think for sure we're seeing a lot of use cases for AI, and I think it's pretty classic that we talk a lot about the guest. But I think one piece of the restaurant ecosystem that maybe we don't talk enough about is the employee as well. So when we think about where we're applying new technology tools and where we see the trends going, we're really thinking about a number of stakeholders in the restaurant ecosystem: the operator, the employee, the guest. That's how we'd refer to as our customer's customer. And thinking about what are the tools that they need to be successful and interact. And I'd say some of the big themes that we're looking at is data will become way more ubiquitous. And so our job is to turn those data into insights, or better yet, actions that either we can take on behalf of operators.
Actionable insights.
Yeah.
That's what AI stands for.
There you go. So but maybe we can even take the action for them. And can we start to take more of those steps so that operators can focus on great food and great hospitality in person in front of their guests? And the other big theme is personalization. At scale, a lot of restaurants want to know who their guests are that are coming in, and how can we better identify those guests, connect the dots to what they like and don't like, and make that hospitality piece a little bit easier for restaurants to bring to life. So we think about how can we make all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes of running a restaurant really easy so that the food and the hospitality can be great.
It's interesting that, and I'm really glad that you brought up about the employee, because, the employees are stakeholders in our business. They're the ambassadors. But the subject that's come up recently at some of the IFBTA chapter meetings has been that the hospitality industry may be the first time that an employee has to learn how to actually interact with other human beings.
Yeah.
Because they spend so much time in high school and even in college, even sitting at a table on their phone, not talking to each other and interacting. Yet you can't be in the hospitality business without interacting with those that are in the kitchen with you and with your customer. And so some of the skill set training in the future may be actually how to in fact interact with people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I hear many executives say, both in restaurants and outside of restaurants, is, I'm so glad I started my career in hospitality, as did, many Americans, because it gave me the customer service and interpersonal skills that have made me successful today. And I think today what we see in restaurants is employees are asked to do so many things, and they're asked to remember a set of operating procedures and to complete a bunch of tasks on software and to know how to make everything happen in the kitchen. And then there's all sorts of administrative tasks that they're responsible for as well. And sometimes you lose, as a result, that opportunity to have that really special interaction with your guest or build the team camaraderie, in the back of the house. And we really think of our role in the ecosystem, especially supporting employees, is how do we make their jobs easier and make interacting with Toast feel like interacting with your smartphone, so that, when you do have that opportunity to step up and do something special for a guest that walks in, or a special occasion, or to be there for your teammate, you have the time and headspace to do that. And I think that's increasingly where we all want hospitality to go, is Human interaction is one of the things that makes restaurants special, and we want to bring that to the fore with technology supporting them in the background.
Well, listen, we've talked about an awful lot of different subjects, so I want to see if I was paying attention here because there was so much we covered, and we've covered everything from multi-industry, independent, all the way up to large enterprise. We talked about the international market. We talked about different market segments from retail to, starting in restaurants, but really what is food service, hotels, in their stadiums and arenas. We've talked about an ecosystem that is best to breed and all in one, and the ability to grow with Toast. And Toast has grown with its customers as well. But with all that behind us and that viewpoint of looking at it from so many different ways, what do you think the trends are going to be that people are going to need? Not the challenges, but the trends that are the trends of today, the next 24 months that you see in our industry or other industries you're working in?
Yeah, I think when I think of the trends that restaurateurs are going to be playing with over the next 24 months, I think it's, more flexibility. So how do we allow restaurants to plug in new solutions, have as few barriers as possible between the technology and the goal they're trying to achieve? How do we make that faster and easier to put new tools in place to be able to get the business outcome that we're all using technology for? The second one is better decision making. Even for myself, my own personal life, I have a New Year's resolution to try and use AI every day in my life.
The year's half over, right? Almost.
I'm
I hope you're doing
sticking
well
with
on
my
that.
resolution. Yes. I'm not the kind of person that gives up in January, Rob. I'm sticking with this one. But the goal is to make it a part of my operating system and to take some of the day-to-day stuff off my plate so that I can think more about the future, think more about our business, make better decisions. And I think with all the data becoming available to all of us and these new tools at our disposal, better decision making for restaurants, especially around the business side, is going to be a theme we see over the next 24 months. And then, I think automation has been a theme in the industry for a long time, but more of it is coming to life. And so the ability to pick those places where you can automate and have the software take a task off your plate is becoming more and more realistic.
There you go. So again, I want to, thank you. I know I'm going to see you in a few weeks at the National Restaurant Show. I'm still waiting to see Toast, branded on the Tillamook cheese,
I know.
grilled cheese sandwiches.
One day.
But sooner or later, we will get there for that. But really, thank you for your investment as the first leadership member of the IFBTA. And, we're looking forward to continuing that as you grow internationally as well. And just being a great industry supporter, partner, and investor in our industry and really helping the industry to grow and move forward.
Great, Rob. Thank you so much for having us. And we are so excited to be at NRA. It's always our biggest event of the year and our opportunity to see the most customers in one place. So it's a favorite for me. And I will be there for more days than ever before this year. So a long trip to NRA is in my near future.
All right. Well, we'll have to visit that cheese booth. But,
every day.
We'll have to see what happens with that. Well, thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us on Meet Our Member with Kelly Esten, the Chief Marketing Officer of Toast, and Toast, a leadership industry partner member of the IFBTA.